This section is exponents. So you've probably seen in your other math classes that we use multiplication to express repeated addition. So for instance, 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. Notice that was 6 4s added together. We did that 6 times. So we just say that is 6 times 4. So similarly, we want to use exponents to express repeated multiplication. So if I had 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, I did that 6 times. That is going to be 4 to the power of 6. It's a lot easier than writing that out 6 times. So for example, 5 squared really means 5 times 5, which is 25. Or 3 to the 4th means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is 81. Now, the most common exponent we'll use in statistics is a 2. So for example, x squared or 5 squared. This is called squaring the number. We'll use that over and over again. So now let's try putting some into our calculator. You're going to be looking for buttons on your calculator like x squared, which only squares it, or x to the power of y so that you can do any exponent, 3, 4, 5. Or you could look for the caret, or maybe x with like a little box up there. So look for something similar to that. If that doesn't answer your calculator, you can take your calculator, look on Google, search for your calculator model and exponent, and you should be able to find something. Okay, so 5 squared. Again, we're just putting each of these in our calculator, so you make sure you get the same answers that I get before you move on. So 5 squared is 25. 0.354 to the power of 2 should be 0.1253. And 5 minus 0.34 to the power of 4 is 471.57. And 6 over 7 to the power of 5 is 0.4626. If you happen to be in fraction mode, you might have gotten 7776 over 16807. This is why I prefer decimals over fractions, because that makes so much more sense to me than this does. It's really hard for me to get a scale from that, but decimals I understand. Well, what if we have exponents and the order of operations? So we did order of operations before, but now we'll add in exponents. So remember, we had please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We had parentheses and any other grouping symbols like fractions. And then we had exponents, then multiplication, division, then addition and subtraction. So let's try a few of these by hand and with our calculator. Let's see, so going through, parentheses always has to come first. So we're going to do the parentheses first. So inside the parentheses, we'll have, we have subtraction and a multiplication. I better do the, or division, we better do the division first. So this little part will be 10 minus 16 divided by 2 is 8. And 10 minus 8 is 2. Okay, so let's move over here to keep going. So we have 20 minus 4 squared divided by 2 plus 3 times 4. So what's next? So we did parentheses. Now we have exponents. So we'll do this 4 squared. So 20 minus 4 squared means 4 times 4. That's 16. So 20 minus 16 divided by 2 plus 3 times 4. Let's see, we have subtraction, division, addition, multiplication. So you do division, multiplication first and from left to right. So we'll do this division. So 16 divided by 2 should give me 8. So we have 20 minus 8 plus 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12, so 20 minus 8 plus 12. And 20 minus 8 is 12 plus 12 gives me 24. So that's my final answer there. Let's try our next one. So parentheses always comes first. So inside the parentheses, that's 5 minus 7. So we have negative 2 to the power of 3 times 9. Well, what is negative 2 to the power of 3? That means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. And then we'll still have times 9. Well, negative 2 times negative 2, negative times a negative is positive. So we're at positive 4 times negative 2 again now is negative 8. So we have negative 8 times 9, or negative 72. The next two, just put in your calculator. All you have to do is make sure you put in tons and tons of parentheses wherever you need them. This is a very common thing that we will do a lot in this class, something that's set up like this, especially towards the very end of the semester. So you will want to make sure you can get your right answer on this. I would do parentheses on the 5 minus 2. Your calculator should be able to handle the squared. Divide by 7. It should be fairly straightforward to put in. You should get 1.3968. And this next one, let's say yes, you keep your parentheses there. Notice there's big parentheses and small parentheses. Now there's not different buttons for big and small in your calculator. Just make sure that you're getting all of them in the right spot. And you should get 63. Now, square roots. We just learned about exponents. Now, square roots are kind of going to do the opposite. So a square root specifically will undo the process of squaring. So 5 squared means what do we get if we multiply 5 by itself? So what is 5 times 5? The square root of 25 asks, what number when multiplied by itself will give us 25? So if we have 5, so 5 squared, we know that's equal to 5 times 5, which gives me 25. And the square root of 25, well, we say, what times itself gave me 25? Well, 5 times 5 gives me 25, so the square root of 25 would be 5. So let's find each square root. So the square root of 36, let's see, is 6. 6 times 6 is 36. The square root of 100 is 10 because 10 times 10 is 100. Square root of 34.57, I would never try and do by myself, but my calculator tells me it is 5.8796. As far as doing the square root, there is almost always something on your calculator that looks like the square root sign. The one thing you'll need to watch for is I have buttons on my calculator, this specific calculator, that looks like this. I have a button that just has a plain square root. With a little box in it. This is my square root. This is what I want. Okay. You might have something that looks like this with a little 3 and the box inside. That 3 means it's a cubed root, not a square root, and that's not what you want. Okay, so we don't want that one. You might have something that looks like this with a little box up here and a box in here, or it might say X and Y or something. You have 2 different numbers. This is for any root. Again, not the square root. So you want the one that's kind of the plainest to do your square root. So where does the square root fall into your order of operations? So again, we have please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And when you get to parentheses, that includes your grouping symbols like fraction bars and square root symbols. Then exponents, and so forth. So square root symbols act just like parentheses. We don't actually draw them in every time, but it's implied that there are always parentheses inside a square root. So we have to do everything inside the square root before we actually take the square root. So let's try that. So when you see something in here, it's like you have a giant set of parentheses inside the square root. So do the stuff inside the square root first. Well, we do have one set of parentheses in there, so 5 minus 2, that's going to be 3. So we'll have the square root of 3 cubed, or the square root of 27. So notice I've done everything inside the square root. Now I can take the square root. So 5.196. So a square root is like saying there's gigantic parentheses, so do everything inside of that first. My next problem, we're just going to put into the calculator. And I did put square root of 27 into my calculator there. So you can put in your calculator, but make sure you put parentheses around everything inside the calculator, because your calculator can't see where the square root is unless you put parentheses. So it would only do square root for the very first number if you don't use the parentheses correctly. Put it in and keep trying until you can get 3.74. And for the last one, again, we'll put it in our calculator, but you have to have a lot of parentheses. So I have a fraction bar, so you need parentheses around the top. And then square root, I have to put parentheses around everything inside the square root. Minus 10. So if I was to put this into my calculator, I would do parentheses 4 plus 5 divided by square root and then parentheses 7 divided by 28 parentheses minus 10. Put that in and you should be able to get 8.